Hello guys, in this video we'll explore the Orlesian and the Imperial Chant of Light. It seems like with Solas revealing his Fen'Harel and with the latest trailers tying the Evanuris to the old gods, very little attention is being given to the Chantry. I've been seeing some complaints on different platforms from fans who are tired of theories that are purely focused on the elves and the Evanuris. I don't blame the people who craft these new theories, because with all the new revelations, one would assume that the Chantry's beliefs are all made up and wrong, right? And if Chantry is wrong, there's no need to create theories or content about them. Well, in this video, I'm going to prove to you how all religions, to a certain extent, are right about their canon beliefs, how they complement each other, and in my opinion, the Chant of Light is the key to understanding Thedas history. I will even go a step further. I think the developers revealed the events for Dragon Age Dreadwolf in one of the canticles. As always in my videos, I will make sure to provide plenty of evidence for this statement. So let's explore a couple of major beliefs that Andrastians hold. We'll first discuss the idea that the Golden City existed and is currently the Black City. The Chantry states that the Black City was once the Golden City, the seat of the Maker when he ruled the Fate. The faithful believe he abandoned his throne when humanity abandoned him. Now think about that. The ancient Elven Empire's main city used to be Arlathan. It is most likely where the main temples or palaces of the Evanuris were located. So if any of the Evanuris, including Solas, is what the Chantry defines as the Maker, and if the Golden City was a piece of land ripped out from the ground by Solas and lifted into the Fate, the Chantry is not entirely wrong by claiming that the Golden City used to be the seat of the Maker. Keep in mind that the Chantry had to heavily manipulate the Chant of Light to make it describe human history, because it is predominantly a human religion serving the interests of human rulers. Also, the Orlesian Chantry is very strict when it comes to the use of magic, so they would never want to admit that their faith and the fate of Thedas are so strongly related to elven mage gods. The Dalish have slightly different views, but they are most likely correct in their interpretation as well. In the book World of Thedas, Volume 1, we can read this information about the Fate. Old elven beliefs call it the Beyond, a holy place, once home to their gods. What little of elven lore has survived speaks of Fen'Harel, a trickster god who schemed to take the Beyond to himself, imprisoning his brethren in the Eternal City at its heart. The elves believe their gods remain trapped in the prison to this day. The elven lore about the Evanuris ends with their gods remaining trapped. In Dalish eyes, not much has happened since that event, probably because they don't want to speak of the Evanuris contacting humans as the old gods. Just like the Chantry, the Dalish too need to use religion to protect their own interests, and humans were notoriously abusing the elves, and by many of them they are seen as untrustworthy. So the Dalish are right to a degree. Since the Trespasser DLC, we know that the Evanuris were indeed trapped by Solas, however only in an act of desperation to prevent the elven gods from destroying the world. Strangely, the old gods, who now we know are tied to the Evanuris, never communicated with the elves to assault the Eternal City. Why? Probably to avoid the elven agents of Solas or Methal. And since we're talking about the old gods, let's explore the ancient imperial views now. The ancient Tevinter Magisters said the Fate was the realm of their old gods, and the Golden City was the center of deity's power. It was beautiful then, a metropolis of impossible majesty. So Tevinter too is right. The old gods are tied to the Evanuris, but Magisters were most likely not aware of it. The Evanuris had no reason to reveal it because they knew that humans thought little of elves. Arlathan was the capital for the ancient elven people, therefore a center of the Evanuris' power, and as the main city it was certainly also a beautiful metropolis. It mysteriously disappeared. Abelas claims that it was because of the infighting amongst the elves, and that Tevinter just claimed the credit for destroying it. The Imperium would never admit that the elves played a role in its fall. If my theory is right, the Golden City is just a ripped out chunk of Arlathan, lifted into the Fate to create a prison for the mage gods. By the way, to support my opinion, I'll mention that Corypheus during the final battle in Dragon Age Inquisition rips out the remains of the Temple of Sacred Ashes using Solas's orb. Moreover, at one point the Inquisitor fights Corypheus in a spot where the floor has a mosaic of most likely Mythal, reaffirming the idea that the Black City is tied to the Evanuris. Furthermore, remember how in Dragon Age Inquisition we had to collect pieces of the ancient Tevinter mosaics? So if you complete the mosaic called the Invasion, Gatsy, a dwarven stonemason in Skyhold, will provide you with a translation of the image. Before we dig any further, I will share with you a screenshot of the mosaic itself. It comes in different colors because the mods were applied. The mods make the scene easier to watch. Basically, it shows 7 Magisters assaulting the Golden City in the Fate. Gatsy's translation mentions, "This looks like typical post-Empire blaster, adding elven beats like they always wanted." That's an artist for you. A Mason would have at least got it the right way around. Tevinter Foundation with elven overlay, not muddled. What Gatsy is saying is that the foundation of the Golden City was elven, which proves my theory about it being possibly Arlathan. All of this does not disprove the old imperial religion because once again, they are right by claiming that the Golden City used to be the center of the old gods' powers and that it was a majestic metropolis. Okay, let's move on to the next Chantry belief, the original sin. The original sin refers to the worship of the spirits by humans that led the Maker to abandoning his creation. It's an event described vaguely in Andrastian texts. It is mentioned in the Chant of Light, which consists of 4 canticles, Threnodis, Andraste, Transfigurations, and Trials. The Canticle of Threnodis describes the history of Thedas, including the times when the original sin was committed. However, the resource has gone through ages of constant changes, so the final version we get to read in Dragon Age games has been heavily modified. The beginning of the Canticle of Threnodis speaks of the original sin, but it does not describe the existence of the Veil, only that there was a physical world and the Fate. The Canticle only brings up the Veil later when describing the events leading to the second sin. And so perhaps the original sin refers to the more ancient history of Thedas, when the Veil did not exist yet and when ancient elves were a dominant race. It makes sense because the Chantry is a human-focused organization that feels very strongly about magic, so they would want to keep elves and the history of powerful mage gods excluded from the canon of their faith. How does the elven race see this issue? Well, various documents found in the Crossroads speak of a time when the Evanuris waged a war against the Titans. One of the Codex entries says that Mythal defeated the Titans and gave their demands to the people. Keep in mind, she did not give it to the Evanuris. All this sounds like the story of the Makers supposedly giving men control over the physical realm. Other Codex entries and visiting the Deep Roads proved that Mythal and Fen'Harel were very present in the physical realm, even underground. Why, it is uncertain, perhaps to control lyrium supplies, or perhaps they were running a refuge for elves that agreed to have their Valacine removed. There are plenty of possibilities. Anyway, the Canticle of Threnodis might be describing these events because it does speak of demons craving the earth, and as a punishment, the Maker cast them to the tomb of immutable rock. So the original sin might be talking about a conflict when the Evanuris killed Mythal, protector of the people, to gain control of the physical realm she protected. Mythal was also the only one to know about the secret location of the Void, from which perhaps the Blight magic came. We know that the false elven gods were in constant pursuit of power and seek to find the Void in the past. So the Evanuris' physical forms might have been trapped underground, while their spirits became trapped in the Golden City that Solas locked and abandoned after creating the Veil. All that would make the Chantry interpretation fit quite well. There's a religion that, in my opinion, does not get enough love in theories, and it's the religion of the Avar. We should pay more attention to them because, after all, Andraste came from a closely related Alamari tribe. Interestingly, Dragon Age Origins was supposed to have a human character from the Avar background, but the idea was scrapped because of limited resources for development. That aside, the Avars too speak in their legends about a golden city that was located in the north. So the Avar legend says that around -1815, an Avar chieftain, Them, gold-handed, saw a golden city across the waking sea in his dreams. Soon after, he offered another leader, Thedas, to marry him and go plunder the city together. Lady of the Sky, an Avar goddess, prevented her lover Thedas from agreeing to assault the Golden City and warned her against listening to the voices from the Fate. If Them and Thedas both agreed to enter the Union and travel north, they would be walking towards the location of Arlathan. This is another piece of evidence for my theory about the origins of the Black City. What's worth noting here is that it seems like the old gods tried to talk humans into assaulting the Golden City over 1,000 years before the Winter Magisters achieved it. Assaulting the Golden City and turning it black is what the Chantry calls the second sin. This is one more belief that might be a legitimate piece of Thedas history just slightly altered to fit the agenda of human rulers in the south. The same canticle in the Chant of Light that describes the original sin also tells the story of the second sin, and that's when the existence of the veil is finally clearly mentioned. Keep in mind that Southern Andrastians don't have any good explanation for when and how the veil was created or what it is, and in their books it just suddenly shows up as the Maker's creation. The Winter definitely performed more research regarding the veil, especially in Kirkwall when it was under their occupation. They experimented with blood magic there to deepen their knowledge and consequently weaken the barrier. However, going back to the second scene, the Canticle of Silence written by Archon Hessarian offers quite detailed description that the Orlesian Chant of Light does not. The Southern Chantry struck the canticle down from their religious texts because they perceived it as Tevinter propaganda. The Canticle of Silence says that the old gods claimed the Golden City was empty and that they wanted the Magisters to reach it so they can achieve godhood. Plenty of other details in that canticle shift the blame away from mage humans and more towards the old gods. It's not a narrative that fits southern powers because they need a reason to blame Tevinter and mages for the blights. Okay, what about the elven perspective? So as I mentioned, it's possible that Methal was killed for various reasons, including her knowledge on where the void was located. By gaining access to the void, the Evanuris might have also gotten access to blight magic. Blight is something that threatens the whole world of Thedas in Dragon Age games, and Solas did mention that he had to banish the Evanuris, otherwise they would have destroyed the entire world. Perhaps he was trying to prevent the false gods from spreading corruption. Dalish legends too speak of Fen'Harel tricking their gods and locking them in the Eternal City. It's possible that Solas did not know that the Evanuris were communicating with humans. He was in some kind of slumber, dreaming for millennia. If Solas is the Chantry's maker, it would also explain why it's believed that the maker was not an active god, but only passively watching over Thedas and his creation. Furthermore, the old gods were specifically communicating through whispers with the humans, and not at all with the elves. All of this was perhaps to avoid Solas's agents who could have uncovered all gods' plans to open the doors of the Golden City. According to Gaider, the old gods were not in the Maker's plan and showed up to whisper to humanity to teach them magic. Gaider might be hinting at the evidence for what I just claimed, which is that Solas never predicted the blights or humans reaching the Golden City. After all, our elf companion is known for making plans that don't necessarily pan out. In Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition, Corypheus claims that the Golden City was already blackened when the Magisters arrived, and then the Canticle of Silence perhaps cryptically confirms Corypheus's words. At a touch, the gates swung wide, and the light parted before them like a curtain, swept aside by nothing, fearful to touch them, and none saw the black marks spreading like a sore upon the shining gate, where mortal hand had lain. It almost seems like the corruption was already locked in there and it started spreading as soon as the doors opened, so the canticle might be suggesting that the Golden City was a prison and inside of that prison was already blighted. A mosaic called The Fall from Dragon Age Inquisition displays the Magisters being ejected out of the city, burning and corrupted. Gutsy provides a translation of the mural, and his document says, "Here's something interesting though. You've got a hint of pigment and leaf causing some sheen, but there's meant to be more. All of these were painted and repainted at some point to match whatever Lord Threeholler. But there's a type of finish that you can do, a very fine and time-consuming pass that evens the surface. Do it right, you can get stone as smooth as glass. And that tower and Beardy's skull are meant to have it, and only Alito is present on the others." What Gutsy refers to as Beardy's skull might be the Magister who opened the gates to the tower. They did not do it all simultaneously. The tower would be shiny to indicate it was blighted in the first place, and the one Magister that touched the gates might have been the first one to get corrupted, and therefore he was polished to shine strongly too. Other Magisters have some shine on them, not as much, to indicate that they were secondary victims of the blast caused by opening the gates. The question is whether the old gods that are somehow connected to the Evanuris would really want to subject themselves to blight magic. I think so, because being corrupted does not mean you become mindless or deprived of free will. There are Darkspawn that are intelligent, independent, are capable of speech and critical thought. The old gods were also trapped and chained, so they needed to come up with a way to escape their prisons. It also would not be the first time that the Evanuris seek dangerous sources of magical power. Andruil has already done that in the past when she sought and found the Void. She crafted the armor made of the Void that made her go mad, so, thankfully she was cured by Mythal, who also made her forget where the Void was located. This means that the Evanuris, or the Old Gods, were aware that there's a cure for the corruption. As a matter of fact, in Dragon Age Origins, a Mabari gets cured in a side quest, and in the book Dragon Age The Calling, Fiona is freed of the corruption too. So it seems like, yes, the Evanuris would want to take that chance. So far, we discussed 3 beliefs from the Chant of Light that might turn out to be semi-accurate depictions of Thedas history: the Golden City, the original sin, and the second sin. There's way more going on in the chant, but I have to keep this video relatively short, and the point I was trying to make is that if the text is accurate about the past, the prophecy about the future in the Chant of Light tells us what is going to happen in Dragon Age Dreadwolf. For now, it still remains a massive mystery. And so let's explore the parts of the prophecy that, in my opinion, are most interesting. To do that, we'll read chunks from the Canticle of Exaltations. It was written by Cordelius Draken I, the founder and first emperor of the Orlesian Empire. It details his vision of the Maker's return. The vision begins. The air itself rent asunder, spilling light unearthly from the waters of the Fate, opening as an eye to look upon the realm of opposition in dire judgment. And in that baleful eye I saw the Lady of Sorrow, armored in light, holding in her left hand the scepter of redemption. She descended from on high, and a great voice thundered from the top of every mountain and pinnacle across creation. All heads bow, all knees bend, every being in the realm of opposition pay homage, for the Maker of all things returns to you. So this is a clear reference to an event we already can see in Dragon Age Dreadwolf trailer. It's Solas holding the red lyrium idol, shaped like a scepter, and he's in the process of tearing down the veil. We know he absorbed Mythal's soul in Dragon Age Inquisition, so while he's not the literal Lady of Sorrow, Mythal's soul became a part of him and is what allowed him to carry on his plans after his orb was destroyed by the Inquisitor. Alright. Next part of the Canticle of Exaltation speaks of the signs that will lead to the veil being torn down. This part is called Portents of the Maker's Return. 7 times 70 men of stony mans rose up from earth like sleepers waking at the dawn, crossing the land with strides immeasurable, and in the hollows of their footprints paradise was stamped, indelible. So this is, in my opinion, a prophecy saying that in the west of Thedas a titan might awake. I will link my video analyzing the trailer from last year that was released on Dragon Age Day. I discovered and published a bunch of crazy findings. One of them was that during the last seconds of the trailer, when the viewer looks at the map of Thedas, you can see that its western parts have collapsed. You can even see that a massive statue of Andraste in the Underfells have fallen to the side, and I argued that these cracks on the map and the collapsed ground and the collapsed statue indicate that Titans will be a part of the next game. The Canticle of Exaltations calls them 7 times 70 stone immense creatures. So perhaps in order to stop Solas, we'll have to prevent the Titans from awakening in order to stop the prophecy from coming true. Or maybe they will awaken because of Solas weakening and tearing down the veil. I'm definitely more excited for the second option because that area is not heavily populated, and on top of that, a Titan awakening would cause a sense of desperation in players. Same desperation we felt in Mass Effect 3 when trying to defeat the Reapers and everything around us was just falling apart. Alright, next chunk of the Canticle says, "And I heard from the east great cry as men who were beasts warred with their brothers, tooth and claw against blade and bow, until one could no longer be taught from the other, and curse them and curse their generations." That's a reference to the Canary invasion in Antiva that is located in the eastern parts of Thedas. Once again, I have a whole video on Antiva and the Canary occupation, so if you're curious, links will be down below. Next, the Canticle claims that those who slept, the Ancient Ones, awoke, for their dreams had been devoured by a demon that prowled the fade, as a wolf hunts a herd of deer, taking first the weakest and frailest of hopes, and when there was nothing left, destroying the bright and bold by subtlety and ambush and cruel arts. So we know that 2 old gods are still sleeping, Razikale and Lusakan. We know that they are tied to the Evanuris in some way. It has not been revealed yet to who, but in my previous videos I speculated it might be Gilanan and Elgarnan. To add to my evidence that Razikale is tied to Gilanan, I will remind you how she is also called the mother of Hala. Hala is a white deer-like creature revered by the Delish, and the Canticle speaks of a wolf hunting deers. Then the wolf hunts the bright and bold, which perfectly well describes Elgarnan, the elven god of the sun and vengeance. It seems that with the veil weakened or gone, the old gods will awaken. If this concept art for Dragon Age Dreadwolf shows a fight with Gilanan, it means that the Chant of Light is accurate once again. Okay, now we'll skip a few verses and let's read this. "From every corner of the earth the Chant of Light echoed, and the Maker walked the land with Andraste at his right hand. And they reached the gates of Minratos, where once a terrible fire swept, the light of redemption from the face of the world. And there the Lady of Restitution drew her shining sword and plunged it into the ground at her feet, saying, 'All sins are forgiven, all crimes pardoned. Let no soul harbor guilt, let no soul hunger for justice. By the Maker's will I decree harmony in all things. Let balance be restored and the world given eternal life.'" If you watch any of my content, I made a video about the winter theories, and in there I mentioned that this mural from the 2020 Game Awards teaser shows that Solas will assault Minratos. I proved how despite it looking like the Black City, in fact it's just the capital of the winter. The Canticle confirms it by saying that the Maker and Andraste will reach the gates of Minratos. Alright, with this I'm going to end the video. I really wanted to encourage you guys to explore the Chant of Light before the next game is released. With this new hype around the elves and Solas, I feel like we should not forget about the Chantry, as it was always the center of every Dragon Age game. My hope is that the developers in Dragon Age Dreadwolf will bring all major faiths of Thedas together, and that the protagonist will have to explore them to find different clues or pieces of information that will help in defeating Fen'Harel. I remember reading in the past that BioWare promised they would never deny or confirm the existence of God in Dragon Age games. I think it's a great idea because not everybody is spiritual. There's also a quote I really like about faith that says there's more than one path that leads to God. So just as BioWare contributed to building acceptance towards people of different sexualities, this would be an amazing opportunity to remind players that the same acceptance should be applied to people of different faiths. Okay, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. In the next video we'll be talking about dwarves, and as always, discuss a couple of different theories. I'll leave useful links in the description and in the comment section down below. The script for this video will be uploaded for free on Patreon. I encourage you to follow me there and on Instagram. Also, if you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Take care.